Steve Harvey had heard some unforgettable answers during his years on Family Feud. Some were so strange that he had to stare into the camera and ask America for help. Others caused entire families to collapse over their podiums with laughter. But the answer that stopped Steve Harvey on this particular afternoon did not sound funny, shocking, or unusual at first. It came from an 8-year-old girl named Emily Carter. Emily stood at the podium in a pale yellow dress, barely tall enough to see over the top. Her curly brown hair was held back by two small blue clips. Around her wrist was an old silver watch that was much too large for her. Steve leaned toward her and read the question. Name someone a child believes can fix anything. Emily pressed the buzzer. My daddy. The answer earned warm applause from the audience. Steve smiled. That's a good answer, little lady. Where is your daddy today? Emily looked down at the silver watch. Then she gave the answer that changed everything. He's in heaven, she said, but I still save broken things for him. The audience went completely silent. Steve stared at Emily. She opened a small handbag and removed a broken red toy truck. One wheel was missing. My daddy said he would fix it when he came home, she explained. He didn't get to come home, so I keep it ready in case heaven lets him visit. Steve slowly placed his question card on the podium. He looked toward Emily's mother, who was already crying. Then he looked away from the family, pressed his lips together, and tried to continue. He could not. Without saying another word, Steve turned and walked away from the podium. The cameras followed him as he crossed the stage and disappeared behind the game board. The audience could hear him crying before they could see his face. But to understand why Emily's simple answer affected Steve so deeply, you have to understand who her father had been, why she still wore his watch, and the promise he had made during the final morning of his life. Emily Carter lived with her mother, Rachel, and her 12-year-old brother, Noah, in a modest home outside Columbus, Ohio. The house was not large or expensive, but it had once been filled with noise. Emily's father, Michael Carter, believed silence was a problem that should be solved immediately. He sang while cooking breakfast, whistled while cutting the grass, and invented ridiculous songs about ordinary household tasks. He had a song for washing dishes. He had a song for taking out the trash. He even had a song called Where Did All the Socks Go?, which he performed every Saturday while doing laundry. Michael worked as a maintenance supervisor for a public elementary school. He repaired doors, lights, heating systems, playground equipment, and almost anything else that stopped working. Teachers called him when a classroom became too cold. Children looked for him when a desk broke or a ball became trapped on the roof. Michael often said that the most important part of his job was not repairing objects. It was helping children believe problems could be solved. Whenever someone thanked him, he gave the same answer. Everything gets another chance if somebody cares enough to fix it. At home, Michael used the same patience with his children. Noah loved building model airplanes. Michael helped him paint them and hang them from the bedroom ceiling. Emily preferred taking things apart. She opened music boxes, removed batteries from toys, and once pulled every button from an old television remote because she wanted to know what was underneath them. Rachel would discover the pieces spread across the kitchen table and call for her husband. Michael, your daughter has destroyed something again. Michael would kneel beside Emily. She didn't destroy it, he would say. She is investigating. Then he would help her put it back together. Emily believed her father could fix anything. He repaired her bicycle after she crashed it into a tree. He sewed the arm back onto her favorite stuffed rabbit. He restored an old wooden rocking chair that had belonged to Rachel's grandmother. Whenever Emily became worried that something was beyond saving, Michael pointed to his silver wristwatch. The watch was scratched and faded. It had belonged to Michael's father, who had given it to him before passing away. The watch occasionally stopped without warning. Instead of replacing it, Michael opened the back, cleaned the tiny parts, and made it run again. This watch has stopped 100 times, he told Emily, but stopping is not the same as being finished. Emily remembered those words. To her, they seemed like one of the rules of the world. Things stopped. Daddy fixed them. Things broke. Daddy returned them. People became frightened. Daddy made them laugh. During the winter, when Emily was 7, Michael began volunteering with a local emergency response team. Powerful storms had damaged homes in several nearby communities, and the team needed people who understood electrical systems and building repairs. Rachel worried about the extra work. Michael already spent long days at the school. He came home tired, and the volunteer calls sometimes arrived in the middle of the night. But Michael believed he had useful skills that could help families during their worst moments. I can fix a heater, he told Rachel. That may not sound important until a family has no heat in January. Rachel understood. She also knew there was little point in trying to stop Michael when someone needed help. On a cold Thursday morning, a severe ice storm moved across central Ohio. Trees fell over roads, power lines collapsed, thousands of homes lost electricity. School was canceled, but Michael received a call from the emergency response coordinator. A community shelter had lost part of its power, and several elderly residents were being moved there. Michael dressed quickly. Rachel stood in the kitchen, watching him gather his tools. "The roads are terrible," she said. "I'll be careful. You always say that." "And I always mean it." Emily entered the kitchen carrying her red toy truck. One of its back wheels had fallen off. "Daddy, can you fix this?" Michael looked at the clock. The emergency team was waiting, but he could see the disappointment on his daughter's face. He knelt and examined the truck. "I need a small replacement pin," he said. "I have one in the workshop at school. When will you fix it?" "When I come home. You promise?" Michael smiled. He removed his silver watch and placed it around Emily's wrist. The band was so large that the watch slid halfway up her arm. "I promise on Grandpa's watch." Emily looked at it seriously. "You never break a watch promise." "That's right." Michael kissed her forehead, hugged Noah, and held Rachel for several seconds longer than usual. Then he picked up his tools and walked into the storm. The community shelter had lost power because ice had damaged an external electrical connection. Michael and two other volunteers restored the emergency system and helped move portable heaters into the sleeping area. Several hours later, the shelter coordinator told them about a family trapped inside a nearby home after a tree fell across the front entrance. The fire department had been delayed by blocked roads. Michael and the other volunteers went to help. The family included a grandmother, a mother, and two young children. The rear door of the house was frozen shut. The front entrance was blocked by heavy branches. Michael found a basement window that could be opened from outside. He entered the house, guided the family downstairs, and helped each person climb through the window. The children were frightened. Michael sang part of his Missing Sock song to distract them. The grandmother later said he kept smiling even while freezing rain covered his coat. The family reached safety. Michael did not. While he was returning to the emergency vehicle, another large branch broke from the damaged tree. It struck him before anyone could warn him. The volunteers called for help, but Michael's injuries were severe. Rachel received the telephone call shortly after 4 that afternoon. She did not remember dropping the cup she had been holding. She did not remember driving to the hospital. She remembered only seeing Michael's tool bag sitting beside an empty chair. Doctors worked for more than an hour. Michael died without regaining consciousness. He was 39 years old. Rachel returned home after midnight. Noah understood the truth the moment he saw his mother's face. Emily did not. She ran toward the door and looked behind Rachel. "Where's Daddy?" Rachel knelt, pulled both children close, and tried to find words that could explain something she could barely understand herself. "Daddy was hurt helping a family," she said. "Is he in the hospital?" "He was." "Did the doctors fix him?" Rachel began crying. "No, sweetheart." Emily looked at the silver watch around her wrist. "But Daddy fixes things." "I know. So somebody has to fix Daddy." Rachel held her tighter. "Some things cannot be fixed the way we want them to be." Emily shook her head. That answer did not fit the world her father had taught her to believe in. She ran to the kitchen and picked up the broken red truck. "He promised to come home and fix this." Rachel followed her. "Your daddy wanted to come home more than anything. He made a watch promise." "I know. He never breaks those." Rachel had no answer. For several weeks, Emily placed the truck near the front door each night. She believed her father might return while the family was sleeping. Sometimes she added another broken object beside it. A pencil sharpener, a doll with a loose arm, a small flashlight that no longer worked. When Rachel gently moved the objects away, Emily became upset. "He needs to see what is waiting." Rachel eventually allowed the collection to remain. Grief entered the Carter home in different ways. Noah stopped working on model airplanes. He removed the unfinished plane from his desk and placed it in the closet. Rachel became afraid of telephone calls during storms. She also struggled financially. Michael's income had covered most of the mortgage and household expenses. Although the family received support from the school and emergency response organization, the bills continued. But the greatest challenge was helping two children understand a loss that made no sense. Noah became angry. Emily became hopeful. Every Sunday, she asked whether heaven might allow visitors. Every time the front door opened, she looked up. Every time someone mentioned a repair, she said her father could do it better. A counselor explained to Rachel that Emily's hope was not unusual. At 8 years old, she understood that death was permanent, but part of her still searched for an exception. Rachel was advised not to destroy that hope harshly. Instead, she encouraged Emily to speak about her father and express what she missed. One evening, Emily asked whether Michael could hear them. Rachel said she believed love reached places that ordinary voices could not. After that, Emily began writing notes. She placed them inside Michael's old metal toolbox. "Dear Daddy, Noah got an A in science." "Dear Daddy," Mommy cried in the laundry room, but she said she was okay. "Dear Daddy, the hallway light is making a buzzing sound." "Dear Daddy, I still have your watch." "Dear Daddy, your truck promise is not finished." The red toy truck remained broken. Several people offered to repair it. Emily refused. Her father had promised. She did not want someone else to complete the job. Months passed. Rachel returned to work part-time at a dental office. Noah slowly began building models again. Emily stopped waiting by the door every evening, but she continued carrying the truck in her backpack. The family also began watching Family Feud together. It had been one of Michael's favorite shows. He loved guessing the answers before they appeared on the board. When he was wrong, he claimed the survey had asked the wrong people. During difficult evenings, the family watched old episodes and repeated Michael's jokes. For 30 minutes, the house felt less empty. One night, Noah suggested that the family apply to appear on the program. Rachel laughed at first. "We would be terrible. Dad always said we could beat those families." "Your father also said he could sing." He believed a lot of things. They completed the application mostly for fun. Rachel included a short message about Michael and explained why the show mattered to the family. Several weeks later, a producer called. The Carter family had been selected for a special episode featuring parents, grandparents, and younger family members. Because the production included a child-friendly charity round, Emily would be allowed to join part of the game. Rachel nearly declined. She worried that the attention might be too much for Emily. But Emily overheard the conversation. "Daddy would want us to go," she said. "How do you know? He always yelled answers at the television. Now we can tell him whether he was right." The Carter family traveled to the studio with Rachel's mother, Linda, Michael's older brother, James, and Noah. From the moment Emily entered the building, the crew noticed the silver watch on her wrist and the red truck in her bag. A producer asked about them. Emily explained the watch promise in the direct, simple way children often speak about painful things. The producer quietly informed Steve before the taping. Steve had lost people he loved. He understood that grief could appear unexpectedly, especially when children spoke without protecting adults from the truth. He asked the production team not to turn Emily's story into a spectacle. "If it comes up naturally, we handle it with respect," he said. "That baby is not here for us to use her pain." The game began with laughter. The Carter family competed against the Rodriguez family from Texas. Steve joked with Grandma Linda about her competitive expression. "You look like you came here to win money and take somebody's lunch," he told her. "I raised 3 children on one salary," Linda answered. "I know how to take what I need." The audience laughed. Noah earned the top answer in the first round. Rachel missed an easy question because she became nervous and repeated an answer already on the board. Steve stared at her. "Your son just said that." "I know." "Then why did you say it again?" "I panicked." "Ma'am, panic is not a survey answer." Even Rachel laughed. For a while, the Carter family was simply a family playing a game. That was exactly what Rachel had hoped for. Then the special children's round began. Emily and a 9-year-old boy from the Rodriguez family were invited to the center podium. Steve bent his knees slightly so he could speak at their level. The question was simple. Name someone a child believes can fix anything. The buzzer sounded. Emily had pressed it first. "My daddy." The answer appeared as the #1 response. Dad filled the board. The audience applauded. Steve smiled and held out his hand for a high five. "You got the #1 answer." "Is your daddy the fixer at your house?" "He was." Steve heard the change in her voice. He knew he could move to the next part of the game. But Emily had touched the silver watch again, and Steve sensed that leaving the moment too quickly might make her feel as though her answer did not matter. "Tell me about him," he said. Emily looked toward Rachel. Her mother gave a small nod. "My daddy fixed things at a school," Emily said. "He fixed doors and lights and the playground. He fixed my rabbit when the arm came off, but it is not a real rabbit. It is a stuffed one." "That's good," Steve said, "because I was about to have some questions." A few people laughed softly. Steve pointed toward the large watch. Is that his? Yes. It is a little big for you. It is supposed to be. Why? So I can grow into it. The audience reacted with a gentle sound of affection. Steve looked at Rachel. She wiped her eyes. Where is your daddy today? Steve asked. Emily looked down at the watch. He's in heaven. The atmosphere changed immediately. Steve's face softened. I'm sorry, sweetheart. He got hurt helping people in an ice storm. Steve nodded slowly. That sounds like a very brave man. He was brave, Emily said, but he was funny too. He made a song about socks. What happened to the socks? He never found them. Steve smiled, but his eyes had begun to shine. Then Emily opened her handbag. I brought this. She placed the red truck on the podium. One back wheel was missing. Steve picked it up carefully. Was this your daddy's? No, it's mine. He was going to fix it. Emily explained the promise Michael had made on the morning of the storm. Steve listened without interrupting. He gave me his watch and said he would fix the truck when he came home, she said. But he didn't dare to come home. Steve placed the truck down. Did someone else offer to fix it for you? Yes. But you didn't want them to. Emily shook her head. I still save broken things for Daddy. Steve swallowed. Why do you do that? In case heaven lets him visit. The audience became completely silent. Emily continued because she did not realize that nearly every adult in the studio was struggling to hold back tears. If he visits and there is nothing to fix, he might think we don't need him anymore. Rachel covered her face. Noah stared down at the floor. Steve looked at the child standing in front of him. He tried to speak. Nothing came out. Emily waited. Steve looked toward the camera and then toward the game board. He pressed his lips together, but his face began to tighten. Finally, he placed his cards on the podium. Excuse me, he whispered. He turned and walked away. At first, the audience did not know what was happening. Steve crossed the stage, past the families, and disappeared behind the board. His shoulders began shaking. The camera remained at a respectful distance. Behind the set, Steve leaned against the wall and covered his face with both hands. A producer approached, but he raised one hand. He needed a moment. Emily watched from the podium. Did I make him sad? She asked. Rachel came forward and placed her hands on Emily's shoulders. No, baby. Why did he leave? Because he understands that you love Daddy. Emily looked toward the place where Steve had disappeared. After almost a minute, Steve returned. He had wiped his face, but his eyes were red. The audience stood for him. Steve shook his head. Sit down, he said softly. This is not about me. He walked back to Emily and knelt beside her. You did not make me leave because you said something wrong, he told her. You made me leave because you said something true. Emily listened carefully. You love your daddy so much that part of you is still keeping a job ready for him. She nodded. Steve touched the red truck. But I think your daddy already knows you need him. How? Because needing somebody does not always mean they have to fix a toy or a light. Sometimes you need the things they taught you. Sometimes you need their courage. Sometimes you need to remember their voice. Emily looked at the truck. Can he still be my daddy if he can't come home? Steve's face nearly broke again. Absolutely. Forever. Forever. Emily looked toward Rachel. Her mother nodded. Steve then stood and addressed the family. I need to say something to all of you. That man left this world helping somebody else's children get to safety. That tells me everything I need to know about him. Rachel began crying again. He gave his life doing what he always did, Steve continued. He saw something broken, something dangerous, and he stepped forward to help. The audience applauded. But this little girl has been carrying a promise that she thinks was not completed. Steve looked toward one of the producers. The producer nodded. Before the taping, the production team had learned about Michael's work at the elementary school. They had contacted the principal and several teachers, who provided photographs and short video messages. Steve asked everyone to look at the large screen. A photograph of Michael appeared. He was wearing work clothes and standing beside a repaired playground gate. Several smiling children surrounded him. Emily pointed. That's Daddy. The next image showed Michael dressed as a snowman during a school holiday celebration. Noah laughed. He hated that costume. A video began. The principal of Michael's school stood in front of the maintenance workshop. Emily, Noah, and Rachel, she said. Your father and husband repaired more than objects here. He helped children feel safe. He remembered which students were afraid of loud noises. He carried extra gloves during winter because he knew some children came to school without them. He never wanted attention. He simply wanted people to know that someone cared. Several teachers appeared in the video. One described how Michael built a small reading shelf for a child who used a wheelchair. Another said he repaired a broken heating unit late one evening so classes would not be canceled the next morning. Then a group of students held up a sign. "Thank you, Mr. Carter." Emily waved at the screen. The final person in the video was a woman named Teresa Wilson. She stood beside two children. Rachel recognized her from the reports about the storm. Teresa was the mother Michael had helped rescue. "These are my children, Olivia and Mason," Teresa said. "They are alive because Michael Carter entered our house when everyone else was still trying to reach us." Her voice shook. "I have wanted to speak to his family for months, but I did not know whether I had the right words. The truth is, there are no words large enough. Your father did not fail to come home because he forgot his promise. He was helping my children get home." Emily stared at the screen. Teresa continued. "Emily, I heard about your red truck. I want you to know that your daddy fixed something on that final day. He fixed the worst moment of our lives. He gave us a future." The video ended. Emily remained silent. Steve knelt beside her again. "Do you understand what she meant?" "I think so. Your daddy did keep his promise to be a person who fixed things. He just had a bigger emergency than a toy truck." Emily touched the broken wheel. "But the truck is still broken." "Yes, it is." Steve did not try to argue with her. To Emily, that detail still mattered. Steve looked toward Michael's brother, James. "You know how to fix this?" James nodded. "My brother taught me a few things." Steve then asked whether Emily would allow Uncle James to repair the truck. Emily hesitated. "No." James looked disappointed but did not pressure her. Steve asked why. "Because Daddy promised." Steve thought for a moment. "What if your uncle does the work, but he uses your daddy's tools?" Emily looked at James. "Do you have them?" James nodded. "They are at your house. Your mom kept them safe. What if we call it finishing Daddy's job?" Steve asked. "Not replacing him, not taking the promise away, just helping him complete it." Emily looked at Rachel. Her mother was crying, but she smiled. "Daddy always asked for help when a job needed two people," Rachel said. Emily finally nodded. "Okay." The audience applauded gently. Steve raised one finger. "But we are not going to make this child wait until she gets home." A member of the production team brought Michael's metal toolbox onto the stage. Rachel gasped. She had agreed to let James bring it, but had not known exactly how it would be used. The toolbox was dented and covered with old-school maintenance stickers. James opened it. Inside were Michael's screwdrivers, pliers, small replacement parts, and the notes Emily had written. James lifted one of the envelopes. Emily's face changed. "You found my letters. Your mom showed me where they were. Did you read them?" "No, those belong to you and Daddy." James located a replacement pin and a small wheel from another toy truck the production team had purchased. He sat on the stage floor and began working. Emily watched closely. "Daddy would hold the screwdriver like that," she said. "I know," James replied. "He taught me." Within several minutes, the new wheel was attached. James rolled the truck across the stage. It moved smoothly. Emily picked it up and examined it. "Is it fixed?" "Try it." She pushed the truck along the edge of the podium. All four wheels turned. For the first time since the emotional conversation began, Emily smiled. Then she looked upward. "Daddy, Uncle James helped you." The audience cried and applauded at the same time. Steve covered his mouth. Emily placed the truck inside her bag, but she did not close it. Steve asked whether she planned to keep saving broken things. Emily thought about the question. "Maybe. That's fair. But I can let people help now." Steve smiled. "That right there is a very grown-up answer." The game continued, but the competition no longer felt important. The Rodriguez family had been listening from the opposite side of the stage. Their youngest contestant's father, Carlos, stepped forward. "Our family would like to give the Carter family the points from this round," he said. Steve explained that the rules did not allow points to be transferred. Carlos nodded. "Then when this is over, dinner is on us." Rachel smiled through her tears. The Carter family eventually won the main game and advanced to fast money. Rachel and Noah played. They fell 12 points short of the grand prize. Normally, that would have been disappointing. But when the final score appeared, Emily ran onto the stage and wrapped her arms around her mother. "We still did good," she said. "Yes, we did." Steve announced that the family would receive the regular prize from the game. Then he revealed something else. The show and its partners had created a fund in Michael Carter's name to repair playgrounds and heating systems at schools in low-income communities. The first project would take place at Michael's elementary school. Rachel stared at Steve. You did not have to do that. I know, he replied. But your husband believed everything deserves another chance if somebody cares enough to fix it. We thought that idea should keep working. The audience stood again. Emily looked at the screen, where the fund's name appeared. The Michael Carter Second Chance Project. That's Daddy's name. Yes, it is, Steve said. Will it fix things? A whole lot of things. Then he still has a job. Steve laughed through his tears. Yes, ma'am. Your daddy still has a job. After the taping, Steve invited the Carter family to sit with him in his dressing room. Emily carried the repaired truck. Steve asked whether he could see the silver watch. She carefully removed it and handed it to him. The hands had stopped at 10:17. Rachel explained that the battery had died several months after Michael's passing. Emily had refused to replace it. What happened at 10:17? Steve asked. That is when Daddy left the house, Emily said. I wanted it to stay at the last time he was home. Steve returned the watch. You don't have to change it until you are ready. Will it still be his watch if it works again? Yes. Emily looked at her mother. Rachel understood the question was about more than the watch. Making it work. Does not erase the time it stopped, she said. Emily considered this. Can Uncle James fix that too? I think he can. Several days after returning home, James opened the back of Michael's watch at the Carter kitchen table. Emily sat beside him. He cleaned the mechanism and replaced the battery. When the second hand began moving, Emily gasped. For the first time in nearly a year, the watch was keeping time again. Emily cried. Rachel worried that repairing it had been a mistake, but Emily smiled. It didn't forget Daddy, she said. It just started going forward. Those words stayed with Rachel. For months, Rachel had felt guilty whenever she laughed, made plans, or experienced a moment of happiness. Part of her believed that moving forward meant leaving Michael behind. The watch taught her something different. Moving forward did not erase the time they had shared. It carried that time into the future. When the Family Feud episode aired, viewers responded immediately. The clip of Emily saying she saved broken things for her father spread across social media. But the story reached beyond a viral television moment. Parents began writing to Rachel about children who were grieving. Teachers shared the episode with school counselors. Emergency workers spoke about the families they left at home whenever they answered dangerous calls. Repair workers and maintenance staff posted photographs of themselves holding tools with the message, "Everything gets another chance." The Michael Carter Second Chance Project received donations from across the country. Some contributions were large, most were small. One envelope contained $5 and a note from a 10-year-old boy. Please use this to fix something at a school. My grandpa fixed things too. Within 6 months, the project repaired heating systems in 4 schools, replaced dangerous playground equipment, and created a quiet sensory room for children who became overwhelmed in loud classrooms. At Michael's former school, the damaged playground gate from his photograph was preserved. A small plaque was placed beside it. Michael Carter. He fixed more than things. He helped people feel safe. Emily attended the dedication ceremony. She wore the silver watch, now adjusted so it fit her wrist properly. The 2 children Michael had rescued also attended with their mother. Emily had met Olivia and Mason once before, but the ceremony gave them time to speak privately. Mason was close to Emily's age. He looked uncomfortable. My mom says your dad saved me, he said. Emily nodded. Do you miss him? Mason asked. Every day. Mason looked down. I'm sorry he died because of us. Emily had never considered that the rescued children might feel guilty. She repeated something Steve had told her. He didn't die because of you. He helped because that was his job. It wasn't his real job. It was the kind of job inside him. Mason nodded. Then he handed Emily a drawing. It showed Michael wearing a superhero cape and holding a toolbox. At the top, Mason had written, Mr. Carter fixed our future. Emily carried that picture home and placed it beside the red truck. 1 year after the original episode, the Carter family returned to Family Feud for an update. Emily was now 9. She had grown taller, although Steve joked that the podium was still winning. She wore the silver watch and carried no bag. Steve asked where the red truck was. At home on my shelf. Still working. Yes. Anything else broken? Emily smiled. The kitchen drawer. Steve looked toward Rachel. Why haven't you all fixed that? We were waiting for the project expert, Rachel said. Steve laughed. The update included footage from schools helped by the Second Chance Project. Children played on new equipment. Teachers stood inside repaired classrooms. The principal described how the project had prevented an old school from closing part of its building during winter. Steve turned to Emily. How does it feel knowing all this happened? Because we talked about your daddy. Emily looked at the screen. It didn't happen because of me. It happened because Daddy taught people to fix things. That is true, Steve said, but you helped people hear him. Steve then asked whether she still believed heaven might let Michael visit. Emily thought for several seconds. Not like I did before. What changed? I think he visits in pieces. Steve raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? When Uncle James uses his tools, that's a piece. When Mommy laughs at his songs, that's a piece. When a school gets fixed, that's a piece. When Noah helps me with homework even when he is annoyed, that is a very small piece. Noah pretended to be offended. The audience laughed. Emily continued, and when I do something brave, maybe that is a piece too. Steve nodded slowly. That might be one of the best answers I have ever heard. Emily looked at him. Are you going to walk away again? The audience laughed louder. Steve placed his hands on his hips. Little girl, don't start with me. You cried. I had something in my eye. Both eyes. Steve turned toward the camera. These children have no respect. The laughter filled the studio. But after the laughter settled, Steve became serious. He told Emily that her father would be proud of the way she had allowed other people to help complete his promise. Sometimes healing is not one person repairing everything, he said. Sometimes healing is a whole family picking up the tools together. Rachel reached for Noah and Emily. That lesson had become true inside their home. Noah had returned to building model airplanes. He completed the plane he had placed in the closet after Michael's death. Rachel learned to ask for help instead of trying to carry every responsibility alone. James visited regularly and taught the children how to use some of Michael's tools. Emily still wrote letters to her father, but she no longer placed only sad news inside the toolbox. Dear Daddy, I learned how to fix a loose cabinet handle. Dear Daddy, the project helped another school. Dear Daddy, Mommy sang the sock song and got the words wrong. Dear Daddy, your watch is working. Dear Daddy, I think I am starting to understand promises. On the second anniversary of Michael's death, the family drove to the community shelter he had helped during the storm. A new generator had been installed with support from the Second Chance Project. A photograph of Michael hung near the entrance. Emily placed her hand over the picture. Rachel asked whether she was okay. I'm sad, Emily said, but it is not the same kind. What kind is it now? It doesn't feel like a door that is locked. It feels like a room I can visit. Rachel hugged her. Grief had not left the Carter family. It never completely would. There were still difficult birthdays, storms, school events, and ordinary moments when Michael's absence felt new again. But grief was no longer the only way they remembered him. They remembered his terrible singing. They remembered the way he burned pancakes because he became distracted. They remembered his habit of carrying extra gloves and his belief that broken things deserved another chance. The red truck became a symbol inside the Carter home, not because Michael failed to return and repair it, because the family eventually understood that his promise had been larger than one toy. Michael had promised to teach his children how to care, how to help, and how to believe that stopping was not the same as being finished. He kept that promise. Years later, Emily would barely remember every detail of the Family Feud stage. She would remember the bright lights, the enormous board, and Steve Harvey kneeling beside her. She would remember being afraid she had done something wrong when he walked away. Most clearly, she would remember what he told her when he returned. You did not make me cry.